You were so you were all in your tutor group sessions.
No, I'm going to the. We were in the hub.
In the hub.
What do you mean?
Do we have Evelyn today? Because she was marked absent. Do we have Evelyn today?
What?
Do we have Evelyn
No,
today?
it's not.
Not here.
Can we just switch off?
So, may I quickly fill up my water bottle? Or do you
I
want to-
can't comment on your speed. I have no knowledge, and I'm not going to stand with the stopwatch and count. Go for it. You want more?
Dude, they won by 20 points. That's sick. So sick.
What I need to do is I need to
No, it was quite.
What's that?
Wait, if I die, we're gonna like respond all the moment.
Netflix.
Alright.
Okay.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be continuing on in our investigating about the market model, specifically demand, which hopefully isn't too demanding. So nearpod.com, and your code is OMWVU today. OMWVU. So things that would be really good to get out of today, we just, making sure that you're comfortable and happy with the supply, demand schedules, demand curves, shifts of and movements along, determinants, the exceptions that we discussed, and we're going to be then embarking in a discussion about supply. You remember the exercise that you did with the 8 squares? You had 8 squares and you had demand curves and you were shifting them.
What? Oh, that's good. Oh,
Yeah. What? When? What? All right. It's not Friday yet, dude. All right. Yeah, that exercise, because I'm hoping you've still got that sheet of paper, is going to be quite useful to you. My plan is that we will practice that particular skill again in the future, because it is a skill that you need. Okay, so that's not going to be the last time that you're going to be drawing demand curves and shifting them. All right, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so if you've still got that sheet, that's awesome, so that you can keep that for part of your revision. I've got 3 in so far, waiting for the rest. Okay. Still waiting on a couple. Right. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to advance the slides forward so that we can get to where we're at, so don't panic too much as we zip our way through. Can I just double check? Did we do the exceptions to the law of demand?
Yes.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, one of the things in life that will always be true is that there's an awful lot of language in it. All right? Now, in economics, we use sometimes very specific language, very specific words. Other times we can be quite general and quite imprecise, which can be a bit annoying. Okay? Now, when we discussed this idea of moving up and down the slide, when we discussed this idea of going up, moving along the demand curve, we were going to use specific language. And the language that we're going to use is this one here. All right? So if the price has risen and we're moving up the demand curve, the language we'd use is we'd talk about a contraction. There has been a contraction, or if you like, a reduction in the quantity demanded, a contraction. If we look at it in the context of a decrease in price, so we're going that way down the demand curve, then the language we use is slightly different. In this case, we're going to use the words an expansion of quantity demanded. Now, neither of those two words should be particularly difficult for you, but I'll give you a little bit of a hint with regards to them. Okay, expanding and contracting. If you are able to use those words when you are explaining what's happening here, then that is going to put you up into the top 5% of all IGCSE economics learners around the world. All right? Because your ability to apply the model with the appropriate terminology is going to set you well apart from everybody else. So doing the glossaries, learning the terminologies, it is well worth it, other than that it helps with your understanding. Okay, other than that, it also means that when the examiner reads your work, they're going to be able to see just how well you know the material. Yes, this one, brilliant, excellent, fantastic, rock stars. Okay? So, when we talked about demand, we had the law of demand, where we were only looking at price and quantity. So therefore, if we were to change the price, we would see a change in QD, quantity demanded, right, which we are going to say is a movement along the demand curve. My messy handwriting. If instead, because we learnt all of those determinants, right, the indicators that cause that shift, the demand curve to shift, if we have any changes to those, then what we're going to see is a shift of demand, where the entire slide moves to a different place. Now, there's quite a significant difference between these two, as you understand. The only thing that causes a movement along is a change in price. Any other change to one of those determinants is going to cause a shift of the curve. Now, you're probably able to see what the examiner is going to do then. All right, they're going to try and trick you. They're going to try and get you to say this one is a movement and this one is a shift. Yeah. And if they do that, they've won. You don't do that. It is a very common error for learners to make. It is so common that we know it will happen. We know it will happen potentially to at least one of you in the room. And that's okay if you're sort of, why did you all look at him? What was that about? My word, how to win friends and influence people. As soon as I say one person's going to make a mistake, they all looked at you, good sir. So, because we know that the best time to make these mistakes and to learn from them is obviously now, right? When you don't want to be learning from them is in May, which, to be honest, is really not that far away. All right? Even though it may feel that way. It really isn't. Okay. Let's get rid of those. And so here's what it is in visual language. There's your expansion and your contraction. Expansion and contraction. Movement along the curve. There is your shift. And as we said the other day, there is only two ways it can move along the curve, an up or a down. And there's only two ways the curve can shift, left or right. That's all. And that's all you have to learn. Now, as said to you the other day, you can have this screen open when you're working through the Nearpod. You can have another screen open doing your notes. You can have another screen open doing the Dr. Google or anything. And you can have the slides, the actual slides themselves open. And anything in the slides, you can just like clip it and put it into your notes. All right, saves you an awful lot of time. Okay? In Thailand, we would do this, and then the kids would say, "Can I take a photo of that?" And I would say, "Yeah, okay." And so as soon as I'd say that, it'll leap out of their seat, walk to the board with their phones, and will try and get the right angle and take the photo. Then I'd say to them, "Well, there's not very much point having a photo on your phone if you're not doing anything with it." Right? They need to actually put it then into their notes. That's something they wouldn't particularly good at. Right. So, what causes a shift of a demand curve, but what causes a movement along a demand curve? So very quick, it'll take you fractions of a second. Go. Which one was the shift? Which one was the movement along? Four. I don't know about the Lakers doing it in 4. I could see it going to 5. Well, he's written the Lakers in 4, not entirely 4.
What do you mean? Are you guys talking about the Lakers? The Lakers in 4, no doubt.
Yeah.
4 or 5, okay?
Yeah, I could see 5. I think if it stretches to
No, I think
the
5
sixes,
actually. 4 is too not realistic.
Yeah,
four is far too
5,
hard, I would think.
But they definitely gonna win.
If it stretches out to the 6s and 7s, then there's an increasing risk that they will lose.
No, I think.
So what is the?
No, I just think the Lakers are too strong this year.
They are, but they will also.
Even though the
Oh.
team are very good, but I think there's a better possibility of Lakers.
Oh, absolutely. I would put the money on the Lakers.
Yes, let's go. Let's go to David. Yeah, on the gang.
As I said, I think if it goes to 6, I don't think LeBron will have the legs. If it goes to 7, increasingly likely that he will be not able to keep going, and the score would be considerably lower. Therefore,
I think
more
they will
likely
finish
maybe
it
the
fast. They
Eagles.
should finish.
They'll need to, otherwise
They're relying on the 3-pointer.
Right. So we got some answers in there. I don't have any from Angie. No answers. Where are your answers? Come on, Charles, you can do it as well. Right, so I was thinking of the chords, Isaac, but that's all right. and our friend the Nightmare. Maybe you could have a go as well. Good. Well done, yes. I've got you a free gift at some point.
What happened?
Uh,
Why not?
well, that would be nice. Maybe. But it's not ready yet, apparently. It's a little wee workbook that you can have.
Oh.
But it's apparently not going to be ready till tomorrow, which means you won't get to see it till next week.
What? Oh. She doesn't finish. Honestly, the booklet is good. This is good for revision. I think.
Right, now,
Wow.
I was expecting that to go slightly quicker, Nightmare.
Who's Nightmare?
Okay, I really was.
Not so bad.
Because you don't need to write a lot. Not needing a lot. In fact, one of them you can get away with writing one word. If you are talking about a movement along a demand curve,
Price.
is price. Well done, thank you.
And then the other one is determinant.
And then the other one, the shift of the curve is the determinant.
Yes.
That's all. And in New Zealand, one of my colleagues used to do shouting matches between the classes because it was an all-boys school. Kind of had to. Right. And they would have these sorts of things up, and then one class would start shouting the answers, and then the next one would start shouting, and then the winning class would be the loudest shout.
Wait, Mr. David, do you used to teach GCSE as well?
Hmm?
Do you used to teach GCSE as well?
No.
So like you teach like the New Zealand syllabus?
Yeah. Yeah, and the IB, when the IB came out.
Oh, there's IB in New Zealand as well?
Yeah, not a lot. When I was there, I had about 4 or 5 kids taking IB economics. Because in the New Zealand education assessment system, particularly for economics, is, how do I put this? It's not particularly complicated. So what they decided to do many years ago is they decided to split the topics up, like we have, and then you get tested on each one. So instead of you having an exam at the end, which you will still have, but you'll have an exam on each topic.
It's like an assessment.
Yeah. All right. So you'd have topic tests, and each topic test would then give you a certificate.
Oh.
But in order to make it accessible for the learners, yeah, they weren't particularly challenging. So, for example, one of them, to pass, you needed to get one question right, and that question was true or false. So, yeah, it wasn't a big challenge for them, but the advantage to it was that we were able to do what's called accelerating. So we were able to accelerate kids. So we'd have younger kids taking them, so that then the next year they could take different ones, and because it was all compartmentalized, you could add, like, chop and change different topics from different subjects, and yeah, make something quite interesting. But yeah. Okay, again, visually, just to absolutely hammer the point, there is our movement along the curve. And there is our shift of. Introducing you to the science term, causation, which you've probably heard of before, maybe in, I don't know, science, where the idea of causation is something that has caused it to happen. So in this context, we have the decrease, the movement along the curve, which is caused by the decrease in price. In this one, we have a shift of the curve, which is caused by the change in the determinant. Right? So it's just using that more scientific language. And as I said to you before, this is quite a common problem learners have, and it's so common that they've actually created a meme about it. Right? And it's, I didn't do this, it's been around for a long time, this particular meme. And it's absolutely true, because every learner at every stage of economics has to get this particular thing right, and quite often they get it wrong.
At school memes, I just never watched. I was watching this yesterday. You could. Okay.
Right. So, now in the slides and on the site, there are a couple of video clips that you can watch for review. That one is from a group called Marginal Revolution University. A lot of the work that they do is quite probably up there, but particularly their initial stuff is very, very good. This is a guy called Econ Plus Dahl. If you're not familiar with Econ Plus Dahl, you will be. Okay? He's online, he's on Instagram, he's on Twitter, he's on YouTube, he's everywhere. And he won an award in the UK for being one of the best online economics instructors that there is. And people who take A-levels, in particular in the UK, but also in America, absolutely rely on him. Okay? He is very good at what he does. Right? Very simple, very straightforward, but very good at what he does. So if you are looking for extra revisions, I've got some of his videos in the sites that you have, and there are obviously others. He isn't pitching it at you. You have to understand that. So you'll have to find one that's relevant, but there are some really good ones. Now, these are the things that you did the other week. Regards to Apple iPhones. Oh, hello, here we are. Were you surprised?
Yes.
Now, like all good models, this one has two halves. The first half that we saw was us, the consumers. So who's the second half? Producers, the businesses, the people who produce the goods and services. We're going to say they are the supply. They are the supply. So what does it look like? Done that just now. All right. Now, what you need to be able to do is a little bit sort of cognitively challenging. You need to keep in mind all that you have learned about demand when we think about supply, but they're going to be two different concepts, but they're going to be related to each other. They're kind of like brother and sister. Yeah? Got family members?
Yes.
Brothers and sisters? Yeah? All right, these two get on, by the way. Just saying. Just in case. All right? Now, when we looked at demand, we had a demand schedule. So what then, therefore, would a supply schedule be? What would it look like? Our demand schedule was a table, so therefore our supply schedule Table. But it's a table of what?
Quantity, rate, and price.
Yeah. Which one goes on the left?
Price.
Price. Always price. So price is going to be here. Then you're going to have quantity here. Quantity is always on the right, but this time it's quantity supplied. The other one was demand. This one, supply. So we can actually, we're going to be able to do it here. So we're going to have 10, 15, 20, 25. Why not? And I've just drawn a supply schedule almost. But it's the same, but different. So if you were in Thailand, anybody been there?
Yes.
Thailand?
Yes.
Famous Thailand phrase, same, but different.
Bruh.
Yeah.
What's on the right?
Price.
No, price on the left, quantity on the right.
Price, quantity,
Price,
supply.
quantity, supply. So it's going to be similar to demand, but different. All right, so if we have a look, because now you're not this isn't the consumer, this is the producer, this is the business. So you've got to have a different mindset, a growth one. No. There's a play on the mindset and the growth. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's imagine then that you are the producer. What are you making, by the way? What product do you want to make?
iPhone. iPhone.
iPhones? All right, that's what happens when you're late. You've got to get hold of mum, iPhone.
Oh my God.
All right, so if the price of an iPhone, apparently, shall we make it a Chinese one? You seen them? An iPhone.
What?
There was a shop, when we lived in China, there was a shop down the road from us that sold iPhones. It did, big sign out the front, big one. iPhone for sale. Oh dear, funny. Now, let's imagine in whatever universe this is, that it is possible to get these prices for an iPhone, right? $10. Remember, you're not the consumer, you're the person making them. How many are you going to offer to sell at $10? Half a phone.
What? How about one?
How about one? Good call, yes, good call. One. We're going to offer one phone at $10. Then the price has gone up. It's now $15.
1.5. 2. Buy 2 free one.
Maybe we'll go 2, just because it makes it easier. Price is now $20. How many should we be supplying?
3.
3. There we go. We're going very arithmetically. Price is now $25. How many do we think? 3 1/4.
4.
All right, the golfing number.
Wait, I don't get it.
It's
So as
plus
As the price
$135.
increase, the quantity supply increase.
Oh, very good questioning.
But
That seems to be the relationship. So let's have a look. The price increases. The quantity supplied does appear to also increase.
why though?
Good
Shouldn't it
question.
increase?
Why? Why do businesses supply more of their product if the price goes up?
So I know it's a little, I think we got formula. So the quantity supplied is also the quantity supplied is X. So compared to the price, 5X plus 5 equals price.
Can you really not do math here?
Oh my word, that's way too complicated. But well
5
done.
times the amount of quantity.
Yeah.
Plus 5 equals
Should you wish, I can lend you an IB economics textbook. Right. Don't need to get that level just yet. Yeah.
But what if the like production costs?
Yes.
The price increases.
Yes.
Would that still subside it at a
I don't know.
quantity?
Well, remember what we're doing is we're considering the price and the quantity. That's all. Yeah.
Why though? So that the income is more.
Oh, we're on the right path.
What about like for lots? You know how like people buy a lot, sell it, it'll be like cheaper. You know when you buy like
Who's buying?
not like when you buy like a lot of stuff.
Yes. Yes.
It'll be like somehow cheaper.
Yes. Yes. That's the technical phrase for that is economies of scale, and we will get there.
Isn't that like a psychology thing? Like where like people think like that way. So, you get what I mean? Never mind, no.
Yes. There are lots of psychological things where people think that way.
Like 99 from 90.
Yes, they do. You're absolutely right. And my year 12s are currently studying exactly that.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this here is what we're going to say is the relationship that we have expressed in the table. The price is rising, the quantity supplied is increasing. The question we were asked is why? Why would a producer, a business, supply more when the price goes up? Well, yes. What do they call money? And if you're a business, what do you call it? Right. It is possible to earn higher profits if the price increases. So they're going to supply more because they might get more profits in return. Yeah? I don't know if you as a consumer have ever gone to a business, a firm, and actually offered to pay more than the price on the ticket. No, you don't do that. But if you were to do that, is the business likely to turn you away?
No, of course not.
No, because they're going to make more money from you. Yeah. So this is all about an incentive. The business sees the price going up and it goes, woohoo! We can make more money. Quick, we need to sell more products. How can we possibly sell? Well, we need to have more actual physical products. So we've got to make more. So this is going to send a signal, this one, to the business to make more. Whatever the product is, could be hats, could be, I was going to say cats.
Cats. Produce cats, sure, why not?
I don't know why. Could be mats,
Rats.
Are
could
we
be
just
rats,
rhyming right now?
could be flats,
Could be hats. But why would that work? Like
could be flats.
it's not work. More of that make the price higher.
Yeah. Well, they're not making the price higher. The price is higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the price was higher, this is how they react.
But wouldn't that be less?
Yes. If they're making more of them, there's more of them. Absolutely.
But is it because of a thing that why they increase the prices because I heard of something like they say they increase the price because people think the expensive stuff are more like more worth it, you get what I mean? So like for example like AirPods, iPhones, why they cost so many because people think that it's good, so that's why it costs so many.
Absolutely.
So
Now,
that's why so increase the value of it.
what you don't necessarily see that you've done is you are jumping between two different mindsets. And it's really common, right? You're thinking to yourself as a consumer, and you're then jumping back to talk about a producer. What I'm wanting you to do is to just think about the producer. That's it. All right? Why do they make the products? They make the products because they're hoping to sell them. Why do they sell them? Because they're hoping to make some profits. Yeah, the more they're able to sell, the more profits they're able to make. But if they're sitting there watching the price of something go up, they're going to start manufacturing more of it pretty quick. Yeah, because that will give them more products to sell. I don't know, again, if you've ever been in an auction watching the price go up. Yeah, it is quite exciting, a little bit terrifying as well. I don't know if you personally have ever sold a product in a market. Any of you? Yeah. Okay. In New Zealand, and I may have said this to you before, and I apologize profusely if I repeat myself, but I'm old and that's what I do. All right? But in New Zealand, the kids who are your age and a bit younger, we would do economics, okay? And they would actually then, and we take in business, we would then manufacture a product and go and sell it to the school. And the school that we were at in New Zealand, it was so popular doing this that we actually had to restrict the numbers of people who could go to it. All right, and we had to have basically teachers on the doors stopping people from coming in if they weren't the official people. All right, so we would be selling it to the rest of the school, but because there was so many kids trying to get in to buy these products, we ended up having to sell them to like just one year group, and that's it. All right, because honestly, we had 2,500 students in the school, a little bit closer to 3,000 some years. And can you imagine if they all wanted your product? Yeah? Okay. So we ended up saying just the year 7s can come. Because they were little, they could fit them, we could fit more of them into a little space. Okay? All right? And then we had teachers on the door going, "You're not year 7, go away. You're not year 7, go away." And then once all of the year 7s went through, then and only then did we allow some of the older ones to come in. But there were some companies that sold out in seconds. Right? One company in particular, they'd sold everything that they had, and it had taken at most 5 minutes. The whole lot, all of their products gone. And I went to them then and I said, well, you know, you got the rest of the hour, think how many you could have sold. Yeah? Yeah? But it's at those sort of times that you start thinking, well, you know, we could have put the price up. And if the price was going up because there was that much demand for it, then we would have sold a huge amount. Think of the money. Yeah? Think of the money. Now, I don't know if you've ever, have you actually physically bought an app off of the App Store? You know, not a free one they've actually paid for?
Yes, Minecraft.
Some have, some haven't. Yeah. Some of them are like, you know, I don't know, 9 ringgit, 6 ringgit, 2 ringgit, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. But if you are actually interested, you do a bit of a hunt through the App Store, and you can find some apps that aren't that price. Okay? For example, if you were to do what's called a MBA, all right, you could actually buy an app that's their textbook. Okay? And that is several hundred ringgit for the app. And then each textbook for that particular qualification is again a few hundred. So you'd end up paying quite a bit, right, just for those individual apps. So sometimes the prices there will send a signal to the producer to sell more. Yep. By the way, the product that they were selling that sold really quickly was French fries.
Ooh.
Right, they got the equivalent of a deep fryer from back then as well. My word, for the horrificness of that. But anyway, and they actually physically cooked the French fries there and sold them so that they were piping hot.
Who does
Yeah.
that?
And they did really well. We also had another team that, as I told you, they sold deep fried Mars bars.
What?
Yeah, you know what a Mars bar is?
Yes.
Yeah. You wrap it in batter. This is a New Zealand thing, I think. We used to do it, right? Wrap it in batter and then deep fry it, and then people would eat it. Deep fried Mars bars.
I've heard of a similar thing with ice cream.
Yeah, deep fried ice cream. Yes, they sold that too. Right. The weirdest one, of course, is good old Elvis Presley. Have I told you that one?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the deep fried peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
You. That's not
Deep
disgusting.
fried, Subway size,
Somebody.
Subway size,
Sandwich.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. More than one each time. Yeah, he was quite big by the end. Quite a big man. So the relationship between the price and the quantity, how would you explain this? What does it look like to you? Yes?
So if one goes up, the other one also goes up.
Oh, rock star. Well done. They both move in the same direction. All right? Good old boy groups always have one direction.
Oh my god, I'm still on this joke again.
Yeah.
Still? After like 5 years?
Well, you know, rather change the audience than the material. Now, so that will be a supply schedule. That will be the producers, the incentives behind what they are doing. And then we can move on because the next part of it is.
It was like a new generation of
No, there's the schedule there. Now I've tried to use the same approach here. Right, when we had demand, we also had babysitting. So this one is our supply of babysitting, and it's just to further illustrate the point here that when the price increases, the quantity of supply also increases. Now, here, what we've done, like we did with demand, we have plotted the supply schedule and created a giraffe.
Giraffe?
It's a fancy one.
Giraffe.
Here it is.
As they don't see the red line.
Right? And if you do the maths, here's what you find when you plot it. The price level goes up. The quantity supplied also goes up. So the supply curve has a particularly interesting shape. How would you describe it? What's happening to the supply curve in this case?
It's going up.
It's going up. It is the opposite of the demand curve. It is
Yes.
upwards sloping. It's like your traditional hill that you might have to walk up. Yeah.
Positive gradient.
Oh. Well, you could suggest that there is a positive relationship, which is much better than the negative ones.
Whoa.
See what I did there?
Yes, very good.
It's just copied. That's all.
Your mother probably warned you against those negative ones.
Yes, it's that one.
Right.
Need to.
Is there anything missing from the giraffe? Is there anything that you see visually that is actually missing from the giraffe?
The giraffe's kind of cute.
Body. Here.
Oh, sure.
One of the things,
I'll go to the.
yeah,
It's just a.
one of the things that would be useful to have is a label. Gotta have a name. Right? Now, writing the full word supply every time, yeah, too many letters. So we could do what we do in economics, which is called codify things. So we could get rid of the apply, just say S. Now again in New Zealand, remember we had the idea with the demand, it being downward sloping, D for demand, D for downward sloping. Running away. Well, similarly for supply, the students will say, oh, how do I know this? How do I figure out that it's upward sloping? Supply upwards sloping. So therefore it is upwards sloping. Upwards sloping. Right. Now, I think you're starting to see the pattern. I don't want to push it too far, but I think you're starting to see the pattern, because what's going to happen eventually is our consumers and our producers, they're going to meet. All right, yeah. And they're going to shake hands, right? And come to an agreement about the price of a particular good or service within a marketplace. But before we can do that, we need to apply the same ideas as we did with demand to the supply. So if we look at it, we need to make sure that we understand that there will also be a law of supply. Well, we know the law of demand. And I said there's only about 5 laws in all of economics, so here's your second one. When you've learned it all within the first few weeks, gosh, you're good. All right? The law of supply, quite simply, when the price of a good or service increases, the quantity supplied will also increase. And because it's a law, we've got to have that Latin phrase, ceteris paribus. Otherwise, it's not a law, it's just a relationship. You've got to cement the law. No, not the laws. Anybody know what vice versa means? Should have asked before. The opposite applies here. Price of a good increases, the quantity supplied will also increase. So what then therefore happens if the price decreases? The quantity supplied will decrease. Yeah. That follows that as a pattern. There's this nifty wee diagram here that further illustrates the idea of profits and incentives and the role that they play in the decisions that a producer makes. And again, feel free to flip it from the slide and chuck it into your notes. Or just randomly hit the table. I am so mad I need to hit the table. So you had some kind of a weird German accent. Yes, there you go.
Oh, God.
Right. They're both produced by a company called Rennie Resources, which is the same company that has manufactured the website that you will have access to very, very soon, called elearneconomics.com. They are working through the finances of that this week, apparently, so that'll be very good. once you have access to that, you will be able to self-test yourself again and again and again. And again. Okay. That is the law of supply, so you can probably guess what's going to follow. Fill in the gaps. Won't take long.
Sorry, they were interviewing me. I was like, I'm a rock star. You know?
Yeah.
What are they doing now? No, they're doing the GP thing. So they interviewed me. Oh, we predict me. I got Oprah. No, they went into the outside.
You got the nose.
The
nose is right here.
The law of supply says-
Yeah.
David.
I did the opposite, and then I went to the accident.
I got Oprah.
Yeah.
I got Oprah.
Well done. See?
Is it
Practice.
quantity supply?
Practice.
Wait.
Right.
Let's go.
Now,
Alright. Yes.
what you will have come up with is this. The law of supply says that when the price of a good or service increases, the quantity supplied will also increase, holding all other factors constant. That are apparent. And the vice versa applies because it also works in reverse. Now you need to know, therefore, that's the law of supply. Then you need to know what might cause the supply curve to shift. What might cause the supply curve to shift? Well, interestingly, one of the things that causes the supply curve to shift is the weather. You all know this. If it's a really hot sunny day, yeah. All right. If it is absolutely pouring down with rain and you're trying to grow your crops, if it is blowing a gale and your product is, I don't know, palm trees. Does the palm oil come from palm trees? That will kind of make sense to me.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
By the way, obviously you would have seen the debate. You would have seen Joe Biden tell Donald Trump to shut up. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But also the United States has just announced that it is going to temporarily put a complete halt to the purchase of palm oil from Malaysia.
Yes, sir.
Don't know. I didn't read the rest of the article. Just saw the intro.
You know the deforestation in affecting
Right. So, if there's a change in the weather that affects the production of your good or service, this could lead to a change in the supply of the good. All right, so it might be, I don't know, is a flood wipes out the crop. Might be there's high wind blows over your factory. Yeah, high wind. Very, 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 very high wind.
Mr. David did this one.
Sorry, say it again.
So,
US says we program for United States.
No, that one.
It's like a cricket.
Cricket.
Yeah, we made it exactly.
A cockroach, right? So like when you pick it up, it has a sound.
Yes.
Yeah, we made like this.
Not entirely sure if you're referring to me as a cockroach.
No,
Like we're just introducing.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Davis like, what? Okay.
Still not the weirdest thing that's ever been said in a class.
Really?
No, by far not. I don't know whether I can even tell you.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I can. Year 10 last year when we were doing the needs and wants, and they had to write down the list of their wants, and one of the students said that they wanted a baby. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. My first year here.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah. First year here, year 11 learner. I did, you know, how sometimes I'll do like, I won't tell you the word and I'll just put the first letter.
Oh.
Yeah, so I did that. The word I was going for was the word production. So I just wrote the letter P. And then I said, right, what word is it? And without any thought process, I don't think, at all, this particular year 11 learner said quite loudly in class a different word that began with the letter P.
What was it?
Yes.
Just, yeah, in mixed company, it's always a bit awkward, right? To which I did have to actually say, okay, well, it appears that something's on your mind. That was probably the second weirdest thing that's ever been said in class. That was the second. The weirdest was from probably a couple of decades before then, which was a year 12 learner.
You just exploded.
Oh, I really haven't. Right? I'm much older than that. A year 12 learner. Wikipedia. Year 12 learner who decided that he would have just a private conversation in the class with his friend, not realizing that I could hear it as well. And the conversation that he had was about, how shall I put this? A dream that he had had the night before. And let's just say,
Oh my god.
no, don't have the, well, if you're going to have that dream, okay, don't discuss it in class, and don't discuss the dream when I'm in earshot. So, yeah. And boys at the back, it wasn't the dream you were thinking of.
What dream do you think you guys do? Yeah.
We were thinking about like you rode a pony. Yeah.
No.
Swimming in chocolate. Only chocolate.
Yeah, again,
I think I have 31.
all right, now, here's something that we did with demand, and we can apply the same tool with supply. What we do is we say, okay, how many producers are there in the marketplace? We're going to add them all together and create a market supply. So here we've got Ben and Jerry in the ice cream market. See what I did there? Yeah. All right. And what we're doing is there's the different prices and there's the different quantities, and so you're just going to add those two together, just like we did for demand. You see how we got the market supply? Added the two individual quantity supplies together.
So you add the total of individuals.
Yes. Right, so again, it's the same idea. You've got what's called a horizontal summation or sum, right? You're adding together the individual quantities supplied at each price to get the market.
So like the individual suppliers are like
Right, individual producers. Yeah?
so
So there's Ben and there's Jerry.
so the individual producer determines the market.
When you add them together. Yeah. Right? So, yeah, could have done it differently. Yeah, it could have been Ang Yi, could have been Darwish. This is Ang Yi's supply, this is Darwish's supply. So we find this price, and we go all the way along. That's the quantity Ang Yi's prepared to supply. Keep going along at the same price. That's the quantity that Darwish is prepared to supply. So to get the market quantity at that price, we need to add this and this. All right. The market supplies the sum of the supplies of everybody within the market. Yeah. Cockroach. Okay, how are we going for time? Not too bad, we're doing a little bit. Law of supply schedule. Law of supply. Determinants of supply, that's where we're starting. And this one here, market supply. So, other determinants of supply. So we had the weather. We've also got some other ones. And Ang Yi was very keen on this just before. The idea of costs of production. How much does it actually cost to make this particular product? Oh, yes. Doing an interview. All right. Costs of production. I don't know if you've ever tried to make anything and you've had to work out the costs of the raw materials, put it together. Yeah. During the MCO, we were seeing that people were baking bread, apparently.
Yes, I think bread.
Yeah. My son decided he wanted to bake a cake. So we had to find the ingredients for a cake and then figure out how to make one. Right? Had to look at the different costs of production. If the price of raw materials decreases, the supply curve will shift to the right. Because it is cheaper to manufacture, build the good.
Oh, okay.
Taxes. Oh boy, I tell you, they can be taxing. If the government decides to put a tax on the production of a good or service, effectively that's going to make the product more expensive to produce, which means the supply curve that's actually going to shift to the left. Now, this does confuse some students. What you have to remember is that 0 is on the left. So if supply reduces, decreases, it's going to move to the left. get closer to zero. If supply is increasing, it's moving away from zero. But it does look, the first time you try it, it will look a bit odd because of the fact that it's upward sloping. I don't know if you've ever heard of a subsidy before. No? Well, a subsidy is paid to the producer of a product by the government.
Oh.
Government says, we like what you're doing, we want you to make more of it, so we are going to pay you a subsidy in order to help you produce your product. So this should make the product cheaper, i.e. reduce cost of production, which should cause the supply curve to shift right.
This will make the production cheaper?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, it makes the production cheaper because the government is paying, covering part of the cost. Right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is we're going to actually finish there for the day because it's Thursday. Right, it is indeed the day of Thor. Right. On over here, please remember you've still got the desk cleaning device and your hand cleaning device. Probably an idea. You nominate someone from your table to do the cleaning. Right, so that you're not all crowding around the cleaning.
This will go.
Otherwise, you can finish the work that you're doing, save it. You will have noticed I have posted a question, an activity on supply. All right, so that's then therefore following this.
More
Yeah,
expensive to produce.
I'm not expecting you to do it straight away. No.
Which
Okay.
will cost the supply first.
Okay.
We have a question.
Have a great day, as we say in the land of my birth. Hey, Corneta. Bye for now.